If you want to hear about St. Louis, tune in to the Bucket List Show weekly. Hear what Marissa and Luke say. It drops every Wednesday. Got a dope new guest every single week. Buckle up for the ride. Who's it gonna be? Who's on the show today? They rep St. Louis. What to do in the loo on a late night, or maybe what to do on a date night. Yeah, Bucket List has you covered. They know what's going on. What's going on? They'll give you, hey, 18 different things to do, or 19 if you need one more to choose. Yeah, this city is a place we call home. A place we call home, yeah.
What's up, St. Louis? Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the STL Bucket List Show. I am your host, Marissa Farrell.
And I am your other host, Luke Farrell. And we've been doing the podcast for over a year now.
Over a year.
Just celebrated our year anniversary a couple weeks ago. Had so many amazing guests in each and every week. We drop an episode every Wednesday on all the major platforms. Thank you to Matt in the back on the ones and twos, cutting up a perfect episode that we can put out to YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Instagram, all the platforms, just so that we can reach St. Louis in a unique way. And our friends over at the Regional Arts Commission of St. Louis, they're the largest public funder of arts and art programs right here in St. Louis. And without them, we wouldn't be able to put this out every week. So thank you to the good people over there, Vanessa, Jay, the crew over at the Regional Arts Commission. In Four Hands, of course.
In Four Hands. So today we have a really awesome guest. I'm so excited because this has been a work in the making to get, traveling and just time and scheduling. So we have Lindy Drew, who is our co-author of Humans of St. Louis. So we're going to hear her story, all of the beautiful stories in this book. So welcome, Lindy.
Thank you for having me, you guys.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Author in studio.
Yeah, that's
Not
true.
Nancy Drew.
Not Nancy Drew.
I thought.
Familiar name, not Nancy Drew. Lindy Drew.
Lindy Drew. Welcome to the studio. Welcome to the STL Bucket List Show. We've been fans of you for a long time.
Yeah.
Before we even started STL Bucket List, we were fans. So
That's right.
Same for me, and it's nice to be here, and it's really cool that you guys invited me on to talk about this because it's been a project in the making, so I love talking about it.
Yeah, lots of years under the belt with this one.
Lots of years in the making.
So let's just start off. We always start off just getting familiar with the guest, your upbringing, where you went to high school, dare I say, the St. Louis way. But yeah, just give us some insight into who you are and your upbringing.
Okay, well, I was born in Detroit, and then I moved to Arizona, where I was actually pretty much raised. So after I ended up going to college there, I started to travel a little bit. I went to Europe, I backpacked, I lived in New York for a while, I went to photography school, had a teacher who said, if you want to make work, it's so expensive to be in New York, maybe you just try to go somewhere else. He told the whole class, and so I never forgot that. Took off to South America, lived there for like 3 years, working with kids, teaching them photography, photographing, taking pictures, selling it to like editors of magazines and books back home just to stay there a little longer.
Just to keep it going.
Just to keep it going, to find my voice a little bit. And then I made it back home to Arizona. And when I was trying to find a job there in the arts, it was really hard. And I had this background in speaking Spanish now and working with youth from south of the border. So I ended up getting a job at a place called Casa de Sueños, the Dream House. And the Dream House took care of kids who were crossing without their parents. So they'd come to these homes and they'd tell us their story about how they, paid a coyote $2,000, $4,000. And they ended up coming to Arizona and they were just looking for their mom or their brother or their dad. It was powerful. And as a documentarian, I always thought it'd be so great to share their stories, but they were underage and the agency wasn't really about that. And it got to a point where there wasn't really much for me to do as a youth care worker to help that population anymore, because kids would be reunified with their parents and then we'd come back to the home and more kids would come. It's just like this endless cycle. But the topic interested me, and that's when I thought, okay, I think I need to go back to school for social work and understand more about how the system of immigration works and other things too. So a good friend of mine, Dessa Summerside, her and I had met when we were volunteering in Chile for a while, and she came back to the U.S. and went to school at the Brown School for grad school. And we kept in touch, and whenever she'd come home, we'd connect, and whenever she had to go to school, I would carpool with her and take her across the country to drop her off. So I had these experiences in St. Louis, but I never thought I would move here, ever. And after my time at Casa de Sueños, it was time for a new challenge. And so I was encouraged to apply for school, and I ended up going to the Brown School also. So that's kind of how I ended up here, from like a friendship that flourished at like the tip of South America to now
Wow.
being here
Mhm.
and co-publishing our first book together,
Mhm.
which is really special.
That's super special. And that's like an amazing story, just hearing like all the places that you've been. And, I just want to see some of these photos.
I know, it
So
makes
maybe
me
you could share
jealous.
some
I'm
of these
like, oh,
back. Like, I love photography and I love that you're a photographer, but like you're more than a photographer. You're a storyteller, you're a visual, you're a brand, and stuff like that. So yeah, that's amazing.
What-
I did not know that about you. So I'm excited to learn more.
what did you take away like most from all of your travels? Because like, I mean, backpacking and then working and living in South America, I mean, that creates a pretty well-rounded person. So
Mm.
just what did you take away from, I guess, like this life aspect, like the big picture of life? That's a really heavy question, but
It's a good question, though, because honestly, the reason I wanted to go to South America is because I grew up in this bubble in
Mhm.
my city, in my state, in this country. And I wanted more exposure to something that was not like my life or my family's life. And so I set out to give myself somewhat of my own education.
yeah.
And then as soon as I got down there and started to learn the language a little bit more and speak with people, it was just like this open door, like, come to my house, have tea, or where are you headed next? Can I join you? Or do you want to come with us? So what I really learned is like how comfortable it is to talk to people.
Mhm.
How comfortable it is. And obviously knowing a different language and speaking in someone else's language is really helpful.
Yeah.
But people just welcomed me with open arms. And the camera also was a tool to gain interest when I walked up to people and they were like, will you take my picture? Or what are you doing?
Mhm.
It made it easier. So I feel like part of my storytelling heart started there. When I was going to photo school in New York to afford it, I was a personal trainer for a while.
Really?
And these people would come in and they talk to me about their days and their love life and their work.
Mhm.
And so much of personal training wasn't always about, gaining muscle or losing fat. It was about talking to someone.
Yeah,
And
like
as
a-
you're breaking down the body,
Mhm.
you're just letting everything out of
Mhm.
what's inside of you.
Mhm.
And that's also where storytelling started to start, where I was just trying to listen, hear what people are saying, and just be there for them,
Mhm.
So putting it all together after going to school, the project kind of fell into my lap when a friend wanted to start it.
There you go. And there it is.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about just starting. So you said it's easier sometimes when you have a camera and you're willing to listen. And so what was that like? What was the first moment of like, we're going to do Humans of St. Louis?
Yeah. So I recommended, I was interested in doing a project outside of class when I was studying. I didn't want to just come here for school and just do school. And so I let some people know at school that I was interested in documenting. And a mutual friend of someone else knew this person who wanted to start Humans of St. Louis. I'd never heard of it. I never heard of Humans of New York.
Mhm.
So we were put together. We just got guacamole one day at this Mexican restaurant and chatted. She's like, listen, I am always taking the train to school or walking around and having these great conversations with people. What would it look like to emulate the New York version? So I got familiar with that version and we decided, let's reserve the handles online and then let's just hit the streets. And it was fucking awkward. Like the first time that we went out together,
Yeah.
we didn't know what we were talking about. We didn't really know how to make people feel comfortable.
It's
It was
awkward and it's
weird.
scary too sometimes because you're like going up pointing cameras.
Well,
in
yeah. And
people's
people are
face,
like, who are you?
Right.
Like, why are you asking about me? What is it that you would want to know? Where is
this was
this? Where is
in-
this information going? Like, people are skeptical
All of it.
and not open.
And this
right
was 8
away.
years ago. So like 2015, 16.
We started in like 2013
13.
gathering information, and then we finally posted in 2014.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah.
you did the groundwork. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so to your point, it was awkward to take people's pictures. And they were like, who are you? What is this for? People would kind of share a story and then run away. They're like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want anything to do with this anymore.
Mhm.
So we kind of honed our skills and we read all of the Humans of New York posts and just started to get familiar. And we found our groove. So we had a business card made so people knew how to get to the website so they could see it was, semi-legit.
Legit.
Right.
Yeah. And then we let them know we will send you everything we're going to put up on the site before we actually share it.
Mhm.
So that permission piece was really important.
Mhm.
Because if not, people see their picture up there and they're like, ooh, my boss saw that. You have to take it down. Like I felt fine telling you about that on the street, but actually they're not okay with it. So we have to take it down. So we've really honed our skills.
So one of my questions, I gotta find it on here, but it's more of like what you go up, you have a camera. Do you have a set of questions, or is it just like, hi, this is what we're doing. Tell me about you, and people just share what they want to share? Or do you have like
some questions
things in
share?
place as to what you're curious about?
Yeah, that's a
like
good
if you came up to
question.
Luke and I, what like what's the base?
Yeah.
So I have a bunch of questions that I ask people, and sometimes I'll just ask whatever, but sometimes they're kind of in my phone and I'll just take them out. I'll give you some 2000. These are questions from last year that I asked.
Let's see.
You can ask Luke.
I am.
You can ask me.
Is there anything in your life you need to let go of? You don't have to answer if you don't want to. I am putting you on the spot, but
I'm trying to think of need to let go of. If there's anything in my life that I need to let go of, the gin that I'm drinking right now
the
on the
gin that you're
podcast.
there you go. Okay.
Which we are for Lent.
Surface
which
level
this is recorded
answer.
before Lent.
Surface level. What is that shit? In my head, I'm thinking like trauma, like, just horrible, just anything, horrible memories, whatever. What lesson took you the longest to unlearn?
The lesson that took me the longest to unlearn was that I couldn't do anything that I put my mind to. I grew up, I thought that I couldn't. And then once I unlocked this special trait inside my brain, that optimism trait that you love about me sometimes.
I do love about you.
That
I'm a realist. He's an optimist. It works. It works.
That you literally can do anything that you put your mind to. And that's helped me in entrepreneurship, but really just in life in general. So that's unlocking that was
good answer, baby.
Yeah.
What's something that was normal before COVID, but now you can't believe we ever did?
What was normal before COVID?
Yeah, but now you can't believe we ever did. I mean, I guess it's hard to answer because now we're kind of
I would say like it was normal to like share drinks with people all the time, and now that's not normal. But like I feel like we still do that.
Try
but like
this.
try this. You're like no, never mind. I don't know. We've got pretty much back to normal. I think we went on like our first camping trip, and like our friends were like passing drinks. I was like, I don't know about that, guys.
That's
like,
interesting.
Well, we're camping, so COVID doesn't exist out
there. They were doing like a breathalyzer. Everyone was doing their breathalyzers, and I was
we were
like,
seeing who got the drunkest. We were like, here, let's blow the breathalyzer, and we were all seeing who.
I'm good on that. We'll just make a fake calculation.
Well, the drinking part's funny because I asked someone on the street and she's like, when I go to church and you all drink from the same glass, she's like, I don't do that anymore.
Nope, we ain't doing that. Nope. How has COVID or racism or anything impacted you? So you could fill in the blank there. You don't have to answer that one, but.
Yeah, that's more for like a note for me to say, what's the topic I want to talk about?
Like you go into what direction you want to go with that.
Yeah, but usually I'll have like, 50 questions in my back pocket. Mm-hmm. And the idea is not to ask them all of them when I go out. It's just, let's see where kind of like you're fishing and there's a hook. And if they start to really share, like the second question, you're like, I can vibe with that. Let me tell you what I think. Mm-hmm. Then you start digging a little bit more.
That's awesome. Because that's why when you're looking at the stories, they're all so different and subjective to that person. Like, I think there were some about like women who had a child like really young and like what that was like, or like some who maybe had to have an abortion or thought that was an option and chose not to, like reading those stories. So it opens the gate for anything.
Yeah. And what I like is a lot of the times I'm not knowing what I'm going to talk about the day I go out there. Some of these questions are so open, people choose. Like you want to talk about your entrepreneurship.
Right.
Yeah.
But then before you know it, someone's talking about being a mom. So I don't approach them and say like, what's it like to be like this?
Yeah, totally.
It's more like, what would you like to talk about?
Tell me.
And I think we take a similar approach, and Marissa can attest to this because she does a really good job of like thoroughly researching every guest that we have on. I like to think that I do that too, but sometimes I write questions and I'm like, okay, now I need to go to Wikipedia. Not everybody has a Wikipedia, so it's like, how can I find stuff about these people? So she really goes into.
Yeah, you'll send me your questions when you prep them, and then I'll like tweak, and
she'll tweak every single one and edit it because she's an English teacher, and
not even that, but just again like that more like personal level. Like how are we gonna get you to open up and learn more about you?
And we feel like it's an obligation. Like when we have somebody take an hour out of their day to come to our podcast. Like, yeah, you're going to be posted. It's going to be cool. Like, people are going to say, but like, we're taking time out of your day. Like, we have an obligation to do as much homework as possible to make the episode as good as possible. And like, we've tried to do that and like have real raw conversations. Like, we have no agenda, you know, we're not, I know I said this off air, but like, I love the news, but like the news always has an agenda, and we just have real raw conversations.
And what's interesting
with
about
real
what
people.
you guys do is you have to do a little bit of research. When I'm meeting people on the street,
Yeah.
I have no idea where I'm starting.
Well, that's harder. That's harder.
It is. And for some reason, I'm fascinated by it. Because the fact that someone will take time out of their day and be like, okay, so you're a journalist, you're an artist.
Yeah.
Let me start to tell you this little glimpse into my life.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, you're talking about a health concern they have for somebody, or a pregnancy that didn't actually happen that they thought would. And you're like, whoa, you're learning just as much as you can educate your audience. And I think that's really neat. You don't have to know everything about a person, but you can know this little like glimpse of them,
Right.
and then amplify their voice a little bit in a different way.
So what would you, that's a great like question to lead into. So like, what would you call yourself? You know, because you seem like you do a lot of different things. So like, do you have a title? Like, what does your LinkedIn say? I didn't even look at your
I don't
LinkedIn.
even know. I haven't been on it in a while.
Let's look it
But
up.
probably lead storyteller
Lead storyteller.
is what I go by.
Okay.
It used to be just photographer, but then adding the storytelling component, it's so different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes you a way better photographer because like you said, like those photos that you took, like you said, you didn't touch them up, you didn't edit them. Like, I'm sure your wedding ones are completely different and your corporate stuff's different, but like you're telling a story through the photos, which like, and I say this all the time, like we do websites, we do all these things. It's like, it's so hard to like capture everything and then write everything. It's like, you have to encapsulate that brand. I'm looking you up on LinkedIn right now. I'm sorry.
Updated.
I'm not even sure what's on there.
I love that title.
Lead
though.
storyteller. It says
storyteller.
Humans of St. Louis, co-founder and lead storyteller.
There you go.
Lindy Drew, co-founder, MSW, MPH, Storytelling Daily for St. Louis, a community arts initiative, 501c3 that provides a platform for amplifying diversity awareness and civic engagement.
Pretty good.
Yeah,
That's it.
it's all cute. I just connected with you too.
We're going to talk more
I'll
about
see you on
that stuff. Yeah. I want to learn more about the 501c3
Yeah.
and what, like, tell people what that means and like
Yeah.
what goes into that. Because we just started this year doing a Bucket List Gives initiative, which is just highlighting a nonprofit organization each month. So, hi, this kind of works out. And
That's
I want to shed
amazing.
light on, like, again, like how people can support and get involved and just all the things.
I appreciate it. That's so cool. So when I was in school and it was coming towards the end, there was this question of like, what do we do with Humans of St. Louis? Other companies had reached out to us and said, can you storytell for us about this topic? We had done work with the Ferguson Commission after Mike Brown was killed and some other places. And it didn't feel like Lindy Drew photography. It should be something that was more of a brand, like you had mentioned.
Yeah.
And we kind of toyed around with the for-profit model, and then we toyed around with the nonprofit model, and we felt like, okay, we're going to start this, and eventually we're going to pass it on to someone else. So instead of someone owning it, at least in the beginning, let's really make it super community and invite other people in.
Right.
So we got a board of people who wanted to help out, to weigh in on things and help out with finance and decision making, which was really helpful. And then we just started to grow the team. People came forward and they were like, can I volunteer? So we needed editors, people who could look at the work and then say, you know, here's a red flag, or the punctuation's off here, or you didn't mean your, you meant your apostrophe R, you know. So that was really crucial. And about 3 or 4 years in, people were asking, are you ever going to make a book? Are you ever going to make a book? So we ended up deciding to do a Kickstarter to get crowdfunding to help us out to make it. And we can get into more of that later, but we didn't have anything in the bank at that time. It was really just living off of what companies had come forward to say, hey, would you profile us? Could we partner? Do what you do, but do it in the context of health or racial equity or education. And I was just learning a lot more about this content creator role, I guess. So we're not a marketing firm,
Yeah.
right? But we have an audience, and the idea of building up that audience is to share the everyday, but also share it with other places in St. Louis to like amplify what it is that they're doing too, but in less of a pushy institutional way. It's not like the jingle. It's more like, this is what really happened to me, and I'm a real person, and these are my real words. Let's highlight that. So that's kind of how it started to happen. So we incorporated, and now with the book project, we've had about 25 people who help out. People have kind of come and go as we've needed their expertise and work. But that's the gist of it.
So this was never like the end goal exactly, was to like create the book. It just, people wanted that. And you were like, okay, well, we've been building this and working on this. Why not?
Every piece of Humans in St. Louis has never had like an end goal. It's like, okay, this is a fun art project. Now let's incorporate. Now let's tell stories about these topics. Now let's see how St. Louis is shifting. Now let's do a publication because all the work is getting buried in the feed, but it's relevant. Like, it still means something.
It does.
So people had asked us, would you ever do one? And we started to look at other books around the world. Dublin and Amsterdam and New York. And we put a team together who was full of local creatives that really know St. Louis and have an investment here. And that was super important, to have people on the team who are going to make it, not outsource it to some other publisher that had done another Humans of book, which was an option.
Yeah.
Of course.
We want to keep it like real local.
That's the St. Louis way.
It
That is the St. Louis way.
It is.
Keep it local.
We're like, we don't want to use anybody else. I feel that. And this isn't like, for those that are listening that don't see the book on the table, like this isn't just a book. This is like a book. Like this is like something you would see in a Barnes & Noble. Like this is a thick book. How many pages is it?
Well,
544.
And I was going to ask, like, how many people were featured? It's 544 people, or?
Well, some stories have like multiple people in it, you know, so we say about 400 people over 544 pages. And we didn't mean for it to be this big. It just
kept going.
Kept growing.
Yeah. Amazing.
We can't stop.
I love the
now.
vibe and the energy of this like powder blue and the red, like, or the reddish orange in here. Like, this is
So,
amazing.
and then also, I have February 28th, which this episode will already have come out, or will come out after that, but it's the cutoff date for your second run of pre-orders, right? But people can still access this book. There's a lot of different ways, because one, is there going to be another run of pre-orders after? Or are we just going to try and play catch up from the cutoff of February?
It's such a good question. So there's so many ways that we could have done it, but what we've found out from self-publishing, since we're doing it on our own and we don't have anyone fronting the money, is we have to have the funds first to pay the printer to make the thing and then ship it here.
Wow.
So without the funds, we can't put in a big print run. So the importance of the crowdsourcing campaign early on was to have the money up front to pay the team and pay the printer. And then now we are accepting pre-orders in bulk or individual orders so that we can buy the next run. So once we place the order, which will be significant, there will still be books available to pre-order.
Okay.
But it helps us to have the funds in the bank to then pay the printer for the different installments.
Right.
And then in the end, you'll still be able to get it like on our website and also at all these different retail shops that are on our website too.
Is it every St. Louis Public Library has a copy? Is that
yes.
true as well?
And
Okay.
also we got a grant from a foundation that said if you can donate one book to every county and city library, that would be great. Which is really neat, because now that the book's been out a few months, people will say, like, I didn't know the book was coming out, but I saw it at the library.
Really?
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
It is
She's a
very
library
cool.
member, so.
Yeah, get in there.
That's awesome. So I want to kind of move towards a little bit more of, your community that you've built. You have this community of over 130,000 people. Like, could you ever imagine when you went out that first day, that you would have 130,000 people watching everything that you do? And like you said, it does get lost, but it doesn't. Like, people do see it. And you've built such a strong reputation. So tell us a little bit about community building, because like at that time you were a student and a photographer, but you weren't like a social media expert. You were just posting on social media.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. So I want to hear about that.
Still not a social media expert.
No, I feel you.
It's
I
hard
feel you.
to
None of us are.
learn, isn't it?
People might
It's-
think we are, but we're
there's
not.
so
We
much-
still learn.
Well, yeah, you more than me. I'm like, I don't have the patience for
She-
it's
yeah.
a lot. I'm like, let me just do this little bit here. Otherwise, I'm not doing that.
It's so much. And the skills just kind of started to get built. So I remember when we first had, like, the first day we posted, I was at my internship and we let it go live and like 300 people liked it. We're like, that's amazing. And then the
really
next
good.
day we're
That
like,
is really good.
the next
Day
day,
one,
yeah. And then day 2 was like 300 more people liked it. So it just kept growing. And by the time we had like 14,000 people, that's when Mike Brown was shot. And I was out of the city. And my partner for the project was like, Monday's coming. Have you heard about what's going on in St. Louis? She was also out of town. What are we going to post? And then I got back in town and I hit the streets and attended a protest and was like, these interviews feel very different than the other stuff I was getting on the street. The questions started to be a lot different and the depth of the interviews ended up being a lot different too. So even in the book, we start off with more earlier hostile content that people can flip through fast and get a feel for, like typical St. Louis. What do you think of the arch? Or what is it like to date here? Whatever. And then we get deeper into the themes. But we never would have thought that the page would have grown to this. And thank God for Facebook early on, because a lot of people jumped on and Facebook was still really sharing your content. You didn't have to pay to play as much.
Yeah.
So we don't boost posts. We don't pay to share the posts unless it's like something for the book's Kickstarter. We were trying to let people see it and whatnot. But besides that, no typical humans of story has been boosted. And so when we share now, maybe between like 10,000 and 30,000 people see it every time. And it's really beautiful to be like this typical person that came out of this Midwest town and their stories being amplified. Like one of the favorite stories I love to share, which is in the book, there's this lady I met named Cindy, and she runs a sex shop near Gravway. And I went in thinking like, oh, let's tell a story about sex. And she ended up telling a story about LGBTQ identity. And she said someone came in her shop one time and they had a cane and this beautiful suit on and they smelled like really nice cologne. And they walked in and they're like, hey, I just want to buy a pair of thigh highs, but I don't have any money. And he's like, I have $5. And she's like, okay, it's in the back of the store. Go look at what we have. And he came out and talked to her and grabbed his thigh highs and paid for it and said, well, thank you. And a few months later, this woman came into the store and she had a cane and she had a dress and she had really nice perfume on. And she was like, do you remember me? And Cindy's like, I remember you.
Yeah.
And she goes, I just wanted to let you know I took your advice and you had said, get online, find people who are like me, like find your community. And so I'm on my way right now to go hang out with them.
Great story.
It's a great story. And unknowingly, I posted it the day before National Coming Out Day. And like millions of people saw the story from all over the world. I'm like, what?
Oh, that
it's
was
a beautiful story, but like, why are so many people jumping on this story?
Yeah.
And that was really neat to see all this attention from just all different places, And even when you look at the analytics of the stories, you can see how many likes or whatever. And now Facebook has like the happy face, the sad face. There's like one angry face. One person put an angry face and you're like, who are you?
Yeah.
Why are you mad? If anything,
Just
this
move
should
on.
spark conversation. Yeah, exactly.
We've been getting a lot more of negative comments. Like no matter what we post, like there's always going to be trolls, but like there's so many people that you provide value to. So
Always focus on that.
yeah,
Always.
yeah. But it's really easy to like focus on them and like click on their profile and look at them and be like, what's wrong with you? And like zoom in on their picture. And I know why you're mad.
Yeah, I always find it interesting when people jump onto the Humans Of platform and they just go for the jugular right away. But sometimes you look at their picture and there's no picture of them or there's a fake name.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, if you feel comfortable saying these things, great. I mean, another thing that happened in that vein is I came home and was looking at the comments from a story on Instagram years ago, like 2020. And this lady went in deep to the person who was the subject. And I get that she was upset, but it was deep and rude and
Too much.
Too far.
And so we monitor the site and we'll give people a heads up first privately, like, hey, it's great that you're jumping into the comments. We want to hear your voice. Please show respect for the storytellers and the photographers and the subjects. And she wrote back and she was like, I never actually stopped to think that there's someone behind this account. I just follow your storytelling. I'm invested. This one triggered me.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I said to her, I've seen you perform live here and I know you're an artist in the city and your work is good and your words are good. Like you're a poet, like you know what's up and you know how to use them.
Yeah.
If you ever want to do a collab, reach out. And literally 2 days ago, way after Corona, she reached out and she's like, I want to take you up on your offer. I'm ready. Can we chat? And I love that. Like, you're showing an interest. You've got this idea about storytelling. Yes, let's do it. And that's some of the ways that we found our editors on the site.
Really?
Like, we made a spelling mistake and someone said they went in deep about why it was inappropriate that I said this word instead of that word. And I was like, okay, well, did you want to help edit? Because we could really use some assistance.
Come help us. Come join the
Somebody
team.
just said that to me the other day. Like, so we post events every Friday and we like do the work. I do the work. I stay up Thursday night and find 10 events to do in St. Louis. And like, I didn't find all the events that they wanted to see. Like, I didn't. And I'm like, one of the reasons is it's not accessible. Like, I couldn't find it. I couldn't like look on Google or Facebook to find it. But then I was like, I snapped in the messages and I was like, hey, like, we're 1 to 3 people behind this, like trying to do this every week. Like, it's really hard when we have other stuff to do during the week. Like, you know, if you have events or if you want to help out, send them to us, because don't say something on Friday morning that your event wasn't there if you didn't send it to me on Wednesday, you know? So I know what you mean. Like, and like and I didn't snap, I didn't say anything mean, but I was just like, it was like a week where I was getting a lot of stuff. And like, I read every single message. And I'm like, it was just bothering me that week. And I was like, we try really hard to do really good work. And then like when it's just one person, it could be a million people that love it and then one person that doesn't. So I get what you're saying.
And then imagine like taking your work and putting it in print. So I get what you're saying. And then you go ahead and publish something and you're like, where's there a red flag? Is this okay? Are people going to receive it and be like, page 57.
Oh, that's a whole different story. Like, I can just delete it. I can just be like, oh, I just deleted it. It never happened. But like, this is like real life. Like, this is there to stay. So.
Yeah, we actually had a review team that we brought on board of like 10 people to say, we know we're going to step in it somewhere. But at these like touch points, can you look at it? Like, can you look at the Kickstarter video? Can you look at the file before it goes to print? So not everybody could always respond, but when they did, their feedback was so good.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like paragraphs. It was just, you know, one little thing. Like, you've showed more disinvestment in the city than investment on this video. I would just add some other visuals. Like, thank you for the feedback. And then we can pop that in.
Yeah.
You know, or with the book, like one of our co-editors had said, you don't have a sex positive story. You've got stories about people being sex trafficked. You have stories about, you know, puberty. You have stories about someone being left for like another person. But like, where's someone that just owns it? I was like, you're right. Mm-hmm. And why don't I have that story? Is it not in the feed? Am I not talking to people about that on the street?
Right.
Are they not divulging information? Like, how do I get that story? And so a good friend of mine, her and I always talk about sex with a lot of friends.
That's what we do.
That's what we do, yeah.
Of course.
And I'd been telling her, like, I need this for the book. She said, how's the project going? And so weeks later, after catching up, she goes, I've been thinking about it, and I really want to be your sex story, which was so cool.
Awesome.
Shout out. So she's in the book.
She's in the book, and she's like, I just want to own it. And I've always had this feeling of putting myself out there. And I don't know what I want to tell you about, but let's get together and just let it come out.
But I want to talk.
And so we did what we did. We like went to Cahokia Mounds, took some pictures.
That is so funny. We just went there on
3 days ago.
Yeah,
on Saturday
we went.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, I just took some pictures too. I haven't even got them off my SIM card yet. I was like, I need to look at them.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
We took some pictures, came back down to our Honda Fits, backed them up against each other because it was COVID. Put my phone in her car, pressed record, and we talked for 2 hours.
Wow, I didn't even think about those like stories that you got during COVID.
Yeah.
Like that's serious.
Yeah.
Packed the cars up and said, let's talk.
Exactly. And we chose one and it fit like a puzzle exactly where we put it, which was so cool too. Like figuring out where does everything fit? And what are we sharing with the audience that we think is important? Who gets a full page spread? And how many people that look like one identity are on a full page spread? Let's look at that.
Yeah.
And let's pull back and like make sure there's good representation. So it challenged me too. I mean, things I never had to think about. And
So what are some of the themes, like, because you said something about themes like being addressed. So like, what can people anticipate reading about?
Yeah. So really we looked at like all of the photo stories that we had done. And then our first editor pulled a bunch of those and said, we're noticing these things in the book. There's a lot of stuff about housing, being unhoused. There was a lot of stuff about education. Excuse me. There was a lot of stuff, of course, about like what had happened during Ferguson. And of course, now we've seen with this massive racial reckoning across the country, immigration and immigrants. But a lot of the times we didn't want to take the stories and put people in this bucket and be like, well, you're in the immigrant section.
Mm-hmm.
No, what are they actually talking about in their story? And let's put them in that section to make it a little bit more spicy and colorful and all of that. And that's how the book ended up kind of getting built. So what I really like is the first couple of pages, like, I don't know, 70 stories or so. It's a lot, but it's typical everyday stuff that I would see and hear on the street. You know, kids telling jokes, people talking about like why they're out at this event. I mean, typical stuff that you would see.
Where did you go? Like, I'm going to go out today. Did you pick like certain neighborhoods, did you go to an event? Because you're like, I know there's going to be a mass amount of people. I mean, obviously post or pre-COVID, but like.
Yeah. It's a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Some days I just get on my bike and I'll put my bike in my car, drive somewhere, take my bike out and just start riding around, which is nice because I can zip in and out of places and cover a lot of area. Because in St. Louis, sometimes, as y'all know, there's no one around. Like the project is about people. Yeah. And if I want to go somewhere to get a certain area and it's dead, how do I tell stories from that area? Mm-hmm. You know, there's remnants of people who have graffitied or done artwork or built a building. But yeah, I'm looking for a person, right? Yeah. So kind of helps. But sometimes I'll go to events. So if it's Mardi Gras or parades or something like that, it's just nice because I know folks are going to be there and be willing to chat.
Yeah.
And the collaborative work, people send me folks. They're like, we'd love for you to interview this person who's getting an award or this person who helps us do this work. But my favorite is when a company just lets me loose. They're like, we need stuff from the West End, Dutchtown, and Cherokee. Do your thing. Yeah. Ask these questions roughly and go see who you meet.
So you'll get a community partner, like a company that wants to like present a segment of what you're doing, and then they'll just let you go crazy. But some of them have an agenda and they're like, hey, we want to find education or we want to find health and wellness or health services and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So that's probably what changed. I wanted to ask you, like, when you started in 2014, what changed about your process? Because like as a creator, like sometimes the favorite thing that I do now is when I just go out on a whim and create a piece of content and I post it. Like I'll just go create a piece of content. Nobody told me, nobody paid me, nobody told us to go to this restaurant. We just went there on a whim. Like we just did this weekend.
Had an experience and share, which is how we got started. Yeah. Like that was the whole point of what it was. And so I know where you're going like with this is like, again, like
we get invited to places now and it's not as fun as it used to be.
It's not as fun. And it is no disrespect or no diss on anybody in the influencer community, but it is really frustrating. I'm just going to be raw about it. Going to dinner and you see 20 people doing this and disrupting like everyone else's dining experience.
Taking pictures.
We're very subtle about doing that. And I'm being very raw about that because it's like, calm down. Like other people are still here to eat. And it's like, there's a more subtle way that you can do that. We know because we do it like that. You know, you don't have to get up and put a tripod in the middle of a dining room to capture a video. So just being authentic and like what it is that you're doing. And it does change. Like we have gone to those events if we really want to go, or we'll send like our intern to do it. But, you know, it's part of.
And we just did this weekend, like on Saturday, we said, we're just going to go do 4 or 5 things that we haven't done yet. So we went to the Coquia Mountains, we went to a new breakfast spot, we went to a new lunch spot, and then we went to a new dinner spot all in one day because we're not getting told to go there and we don't have an obligation to create content. If we want to, if I see something, I'm like, oh, that would be good for the feed. But if I don't, like I haven't even touched it yet. Like used to be, I'd be like, let me get this out tonight so I can make the client happy, like that they paid me to come out and eat dinner. So I wanted to see in that where that question went. I appreciate you saying that because I feel the same way. But like, what has changed about your process? Because I'm sure that now that you have a team, it's a lot more that goes into it. And there's probably not just that, like, let me just ride my bike. I don't know. I'm kind of curious about what changed over the 8 years.
Yeah. And I mean, you also bring up a good point about you guys did this naturally. And now folks are reaching out because they like your style and the way you're doing it. Right. So how do you also bring that to it when there's an agenda?
Yeah.
And some of my most favorite Humans of St. Louis work is just that one-on-one conversation. I didn't know I was going to meet this person. I didn't know what I was going to talk about today. They're down for the exchange. And then we share. And it's like a really beautiful moment. And the audience can see through it. Yeah. They can see through it. If they're like, you're pushing something. Like,
oh, of course.
Okay, yeah, let's go back to like the nitty-gritty of what St. Louis is all about and what the storytelling is all about. But it's also a really good challenge. Like I would not have had an education about some of these topics if these collaborators didn't come forward.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, because we were fundraising during the time that we were making a lot of collaborative work, those stories ended up becoming part of the book. So originally when we went to make the book, we put the edit together. It just wasn't complete. Went back to the drawing board, kept kind of looking around for what else we needed. And a lot of that stuff is in there. So like, thank God some organizations came forward. They're like, tell stories about neighborhood. I'm like, well, I haven't really gone out to just ask about neighborhood. Neighborhood just kind of happens in the storytelling. And it was significant and like beautiful, like these missing puzzle pieces.
And it
right
guided
in.
you to these, like, you're like, oh, that's really good. And that's really good. Like, although we are pushing an agenda, like we're actually getting good content in the process.
And to be honest, like as a content creator, how do you support yourself?
Yeah.
So originally when I was just photographing and I was younger and not living here, it was like, okay, put up an ad on Craigslist and see if someone will hire me. Here's my website, which is pretty dormant and inactive, you know, but it's really nice to put this content out there. And we haven't pushed that we do storytelling services, but people come to us to do it. And like, it's our pleasure to also be able to do it. I think about when I'm on the street, who's on the street when I'm on the street, but also who's working and indoors and not on the street. Yeah. So these collabs have given me a chance to meet with people who are like at the top of a building in a skyrise or out in the county. And maybe I'm not riding my bike there that day. And that's been a benefit to show a wide array of people. You know?
So I have a question for you.
So cool.
I have a cool question for you. So what does a day in your life look like? So there's 5 days in a regular work week, but like, you know, would you, like, you're an entrepreneur, you're a storyteller, you're a photographer, you're a journalist, you're an author, all these amazing titles, but like, what does your daily routine look like? And you can give me your coolest day. You don't have to say your worst day, because some days are worse than others, because I've had some bad days too. But like, what's like a day look like for you?
Every day's different, as you can assume.
Oh, yeah.
Same.
And I love that I don't have to check in at 9 and check out at 5.
Yep.
Punch the clock.
It's really a benefit and something when I graduated I didn't know would be. But a day could look like checking work emails to see who's reaching out for presentations and what I need to do for like current collabs, who I'm interviewing next, getting the model releases together, clearing my camera's card, heading out there to go meet those folks and have somewhere between like a 30-minute to a 1-hour interview and then photo session right after. The photos take like 10 or 15 minutes. They're fast.
Yeah.
It's the interviews that take a long time to really like massage that conversation or let someone feel comfortable to share. There's definitely time in my day to get together with friends for a breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Something's going to happen.
Something good.
One of those, one of the three.
Yeah. And my partner makes fun of me because he's like, aren't you tired? You talk all day. You listen to people all day. It's like, no, I need to have some friend time.
You go out to eat by yourself ever? Like, are you a big like person? I like going to breakfast by myself.
No, I definitely do. Yeah. And I'm always down when someone wants to go out too.
You're always like, you want to go, mimosas, bloodies, lunch beer. Yep. Or you said you don't like beer, but
something good.
So
it's very spontaneous, and it keeps, like, in my opinion, like my days are like that as well. And you have a little bit more, standard time to your routine. Day. She likes routine, but I like
need it. Like these days off, and summer's off. I'm complaining, poor me, right?
What do I do?
3 months off. I don't know what to do with myself.
But you'll ask me, you're like, what are you doing tomorrow? And I'm like, yeah, this. And you're like, you don't know what you're doing tomorrow?
I'm like you, Luke.
I'm like, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing, but I'm like, it's written down somewhere. Like, I'm doing like these things tomorrow,
like,
but I don't know.
Here, then there, and then like
random,
But it keeps things excited. Like, I get so much energy from like new experiences and new things. Even if it's like you're driving the same roads, like, but you're just moving, you're active. And I like the riding the bike thing. I want to try that with like, since one of our bikes got stolen, now we have one, but we'll get another one. So
welcome to St. Louis.
We live in South City,
and I left it outside. Like I just left it. I just was like, no one will take this.
My moped got stolen too. So and we live in South City. You need to come hang out in Southampton.
It doesn't matter where. That's fine. We'll get another bike.
Yeah, but to your point about like everyday stuff, within all of that, there's usually a post. Yeah. And so most of the time I'm posting in the moment. I usually am not scheduling. Yeah. Because sometimes there's things I'll piggyback off of or I'll tag in the comments. So a lot of it is in the moment. So maybe giving stories like a 3 or 4 hour break in between, getting up there, and then monitoring to make sure like that the audience is participating, but like appropriately, because we don't condone bullying. We don't condone name calling towards other people who are commenting or the person in the post. So yeah, we'll give warnings, but not often, just once in a while. Most of the time it kind of runs itself, which is really nice.
That's what I was going to ask, like, how much time do you spend on there? Like, because, like, you post it, do you, like, watch and, like, look at the engagement, or do you just, like, set it away for a second?
In the beginning I do, to make sure if anyone has an immediate need that's addressed, or if I have to make a connection to the subject and somebody who's writing, that happens. Obviously, I know, like, certain stories that are heavier, I know there's going to be an audience reaction. I'm on it. I'm there. I'm helping people make connections. If it's like, I'd like to get this guy's hair redreaded, can I take him to a barbershop? Or can I, like, offer to buy this person clothes because they're getting a new job and they don't have any. So
that's awesome.
It's very necessary. But for others that are just random things, like the print I brought in here today for you, people are just going to laugh at it and like it and share it. And it just does its thing.
I love it.
Right. Like, that one's going to do that. And you're like, I don't have to do that. Hey, I don't blame them. That's a good one.
Big Papa.
Never had a lap dance.
I love it. Yeah. That's the best. No, we got to hang that. We've got to find a good spot.
We will in the office for sure.
But it's fun. It's fun too, like when people write and they're like, I know someone that I'd like for you to interview. Or have you met this person on the side of the street before? And then I'll tell them, like, why don't you go interview them? Like, you go say hi, you go talk to them, see what you find.
Encourage other people. So what has been, I'm going to guess, COVID probably, but has that probably been the biggest challenge during this experience? Or, I mean, was a whole, I mean, even like just now, I'm starting to feel like our world we're having some normalcy. So what are the challenges? Just, again, people probably not being out or not being willing to talk. Like, I'm answering my question for you, but if you want to touch on that.
Yeah. So when COVID hit, like, the whole spiel of humans is to talk to people one-on-one and be close to them, right? So that was not an option. So I sat back and I just watched social media explode. People were telling their own stories and they were doing it without being prompted. So instead of going through this whole thing where you randomly meet someone on the street and then someone's like editing your stuff and you're this conduit to push their info out, they were just pushing their info out, their needs, their like health issues, their concerns. So for a few months, I just kind of read and paid attention and stepped back to breathe. I didn't know what was going to happen with the site. The book was still under construction. And then I put a call out virtually for people to tell their stories. So people started reaching out. And it was cool because they reached out from all over the world. So folks who had a connection to St. Louis, or they're like, my grandparents live there. It's important to tell stories about masking or vaccinating or something. This is why. That was really interesting. We were telling stories I wouldn't have been able to tell before. And even like letting go of that control of being the documentarian in the photo sense and saying, can you just send me your pictures? Tell me a picture of you and your grandparents. And I'll just use that to share. And so I really broke the structure of the site. It was very clean, I think, before. And now I'm like, it doesn't matter. However a story needs to unfold and get told, whatever is the best medium to do that. You don't have to have the most expensive equipment. You don't have to be the one that does all the things. Just put it together and use the platform how it's meant to be. Like, that was really cool.
Real.
Yeah. I like that a lot. But to your question also, there were so many hurdles with the book. The book's the hardest thing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we keep going back to the book and you're like, it's just like all these things. Because you're like, originally it was just fun and it was authentic. But then you're like, now I'm putting this out to the world. Like, I need to make sure that this is right. You have that obligation and that privilege to provide that product. Exactly. That you want to make sure that it's perfect.
Yeah. So a little bit before COVID, we lost one of our editors temporarily because of just personal things that happened. And when COVID hit, we lost our printer. And so that was really tough because the budget was built for a printer that we had talked to 3 hours away in Illinois. We toured. The place was great for what we needed. They could handle the amount that we were trying to print, which was 3,250 for the first run. And once the PDF was finalized, we let them know. And they said, we actually don't have capacity to print your book right now, maybe in another 6 months. We'd already waited so many years. So we had to go back to the drawing board. So what had happened is their printer was in an area where other printers had folded and they got all that business. And then they only got a certain paper allotment for what we needed for our book. And they're like, if you had a baby book, like kids book, we could have printed 20,000 copies, but we just can't do it yet, maybe in a while. But we were ready, and our audience was ready, our funders and backers and Kickstarter supporters, everyone who just gave to like let this thing be birthed. They were just ready. We were ready. So we found a lady who helps people in Canada and North America print in China. And she's like, I've got a lot of connections with people out there from working 20 years in the publishing field, and let's chat. It was great. And we ended up printing overseas, and then the shipment came over and we got 14 pallets of books that arrived.
How was that moment? How did you feel?
Like, here we are. We made it.
I mean, it's
It
real.
felt
It's
so
tangible
good.
at that point. It's not social media.
Yeah.
You know, it's bigger than that.
That was a great day when the shipment finally arrived. We're getting notices from the shipper, and they're like, yeah, it'll be here on this date. So we had all these volunteers ready to go and help us take the books from outside on the street side corner at Big Brothers Big Sisters into their basement where we were like housing everything. And then it just didn't show. So we kept calling the shipper. They're like, well, it'll be around this date. They weren't quite sure.
Dang.
And that's different. You know, there's a lot of bottlenecks in shipping on the way, you know, during COVID. And we were definitely feeling that. But when we did finally get the notice, like, it'll be here tomorrow for sure. A bunch of us ended up meeting at the corner of like Grand and just by the Fox Theater by Big Brothers.
Yeah.
And took some pictures, and then got a bunch of dollies and took the
Got to work.
book boxes inside. Yeah.
These are some heavy books too.
Heavy.
3,000 of these? 3,250 of those?
Crazy.
Are you kidding me?
Heavy. Yeah, we need to do a workout video with it.
I was going to say, I could do some squats.
are a
with this
personal
book,
trainer,
for
so.
Sure. Yeah, there you go.
Funny. Past lifetime.
I love it. That's
Yeah,
funny.
it's good.
That could be a fun, like, little clip just to do. Like, did you
I
get
saw
your
that
book?
video. And then I
So
saw another video of
cute.
you at Left Bank. Left Bank did a really cool, like, little street side window for you. So, like, people are just, like, you know, pouring into your project here and actually, like, bringing it into the community because it's so special for us. Like, it's something that we're proud of. Like, I'm proud of this book that you created, that you and your partner or your co-author created. So I wanted to learn a little bit about her and about that relationship. You talked a little bit about it.
Yeah.
And, you know, give her some praise, give her some shout outs. Because, like, it sounds like your guys' story is insane. You know, how it even became, like, it's just special.
Yeah, I wish he was here right now. I mean, to your point, there were a lot of organizations that did pour in a lot of love.
Yeah.
And Left Bank really was one of them to come forward for the book release.
Yeah,
it was
they're
just
awesome.
unbelievable. But like everyone who pre-purchased to say, like, I know our money's going to be held up, but it gets here when it gets here. And then they were able to sell it or give it away as a gift. And that was really neat to see.
Yeah.
Dessa and I have a whole love story. There is a massive friendship behind just, you know, publishing a book. So we met in Chile, both volunteered there with kids whose parents had abandoned them. We're both from Phoenix, Arizona, in a very specific part of Phoenix, we found out.
Wow.
So that was kind of neat. When we both returned from Chile at separate times, we started to hang out. One of the things we really wanted to learn that we did not learn in Latin America was how to salsa dance.
Oh,
So,
That's so cool.
you've been talking about
I know.
that
I
too.
want to do it.
it's a good
Fun.
time.
Did you learn?
We did. So we ended up finding places to go in Phoenix. It was a bust the first few times we went out, got all dolled up, and then we're like, this place closed for good. So
Oh, shoot.
guess it's the wrong night. But we ended up finding it. We ended up learning. When she came here for school, she kept dancing, told me where to go out here. I kept dancing. So
Where?
so
Where'd you go?
we love to hang out in the basement of Viva.
Club Viva?
I knew it.
Oh
I
my
knew.
gosh.
I
We've been
knew
hearing
it.
that for like the
We've
last.
been to Club Viva.
Yeah, we have been. Yeah.
What do you mean? We've
It's
been there.
the best.
But I've been hearing it come up a lot more from people like back in the early 2000s and like 2008, 2009. They were like, oh, like we love Club Vivo, but
Yeah.
like, and it's still
That's the
there.
spot.
It's still popping.
It's
You
the
wanna learn.
spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of conversations are going on down there. We'll do a little bit of work, a little bit of fun.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of friends.
We haven't been there a long time.
It's such a good
Yeah, we gotta go
time.
back there.
It's like family. So we spend a lot of our time doing that together.
Cool.
And Dessa ended up studying and graduating the year that I started school. She took off for Cambodia to work for the World Food Program and was there for a few years. And while she was there and I started Humans in St. Louis, she had been living here for a while and really loved the concept. So she'd get on and she'd like fight for the subject. So someone came for them, she came right after them. I was like, you're really interested. She's like, I love the idea. I think it's great. How can I support? So when it was time for her to get a new job, she ended up moving back to St. Louis. And I brought her on as an editor. And then from there, we had some people slide off the board to make room for new folks. And she slid on. So right now she's the president of the board who helps to kind of stage everything. In between that, Dessa has also done foster care. And so she's looked after her fair amount of children with her partner at that time. So we help each other out in anything. I make a book, she makes a book. She has babies, I'm gonna be there for her babies.
You're like, I'm gonna be there for you.
You guys are so cool. I mean, you help each other out, but you
friendship.
help out people. Like you're both humanitarians, like totally at heart, you know?
Yeah,
It's
we have
the humanitarians behind the humans of St. Louis. That's what we have here.
We were thinking of an episode name before, and I was
really,
like,
it goes to show,
humans.
like, you're empathetic. You do so much work. Like, you care. You care to listen. It's not just about making a product. It's caring to understand humanity and people and the human experience. And I think that's amazing.
100%. And honestly, if Dessa was here, I'll help tell part of her story. But during Corona, she ended up opening up her own little organization called Maple Good. So she's in the Maplewood area, and she noticed there was a huge need for food and medical services and this and that. And they opened up this Facebook site, and then people in Maplewood just started to jump in and kind of expand that need to help as well. So she ran that for a while and has since passed it on to her other neighbors too.
Yeah.
Nice.
But anytime there was overlap, it's like, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? So there's a deep-rooted friendship there that's got a little bit of travel in there, a little bit of dance in there, you know, a little bit of storytelling in there.
Parties that you might not talk about on podcasts.
If she was here, we probably would.
Yeah.
But it's a good time. And honestly, I wouldn't be here in St. Louis if it wasn't for her invitation.
Yeah, right.
Because
That's
really
what brought you
watching
here.
her do her thing, it was neat. So she was in her internship in Panama when I went to visit her, and she helped me make out my application for school.
Yeah.
And I submitted it from there. And yeah, we're both here still.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
That's super special.
What else do we have? People. How do the people, how do they respond to having their stories featured? Like, what's that like for them? And you're like, we're putting your picture and your story in the book.
Yeah. Well, for the actual site, a lot of folks, when I approach them, they've never heard of it. But I love that they're down to talk. Because I don't know if I would be if someone approached me.
Really?
I really don't know if they're like, I have this site, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'd start to tell as much as some of
nowadays
these
you got your
people do
AirPods
tell
in,
me.
you're walking, like people are stop. You're like, I got time. You know, you're moving. But like I get what you're saying. Like especially if they don't know it. But now more people are probably knowing it.
Yeah. And so we get people who are also like, oh, I know your site, but I don't have anything to say like the people who you profile. It's like, well, how do you know? Like, what if we just tried? So we don't even enter the conversation as like, whatever we put together has to go on the site. It's more like, let's just talk. That's the first part. Because even if we separate at that point and they say, we don't want you to put our picture and quote on the site, that is fine.
Yeah.
It's still an engagement with someone in St. Louis to show that person like these preconceived notions that people might have of St. Louis don't really have to be that, you know? So, but the ones who are, know about the site and want to be profiled when I approach them, or they don't know and they agree to be profiled, I think they take a lot of pride in their story being out there.
Yeah.
Some folks are really finicky and pedantic and want to change everything they said from what they had said in person. And what they said in person was beautiful and poetic and perfect. And I'm like, I just spent an hour transcribing it and editing it. But they're like, that's not how I sound and it's not how I want to sound. So you have to go back to the drawing board or sometimes kind of negotiate that. Other folks are like, I love it. It looks great. No changes. Let it run.
Send it off.
Yeah, let it fly. Which is always really fun as a content creator.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But yeah, I love when people then in the comments are like, I know that person, or they tag them, or they want to like help out with something. For the book, it was interesting because we'd approach people and say, in a good faith effort, we want to have you sign this model release. As part of our Kickstarter, we're also giving everyone in the book a free copy to say thank you, because that's how we can say thank you.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
So it was part of the budget that we built in. So getting in touch with them, some folks were like, I don't want to be in the book. It's fine that I was on the site, but I don't want to be memorialized like that, because maybe my story isn't who I am today. And it was fine for the time, but that was 5 or 6 years ago, Lindy.
Changed, yeah.
I've changed. Other folks are like, I don't want to be in your book, and I probably should have never said the shit that I talked about St. Louis when I said it. So a lot of the storytelling is like shining a mirror up and letting people see for themselves. Like, these are your words. Like, did you want that to go out there?
Do a little reflecting.
It's very true, probably to an extent, but should we capture that or share it or not? So some were like, I could never say that. So one girl in particular, I remember, her photo was so cute. It's downtown, and she had said she's not from the city, but she was in the city that day. She was a little younger, like just had kind of started college. And she had said, I'm rarely here. My parents don't even know I'm in the city today. And if they knew, they wouldn't be very happy. And I was like, well, what do folks think about St. Louis, where you're from? And she's not from very far away. And she's like, well, basically, when you're driving into town and you can see the arch, you've gone too far. And it's like, dude, I could see the arch from Maplewood. Come on. Like, or I can see the arch where the arch is at and just enjoy it.
Right.
And, you know, you hear a lot of what people think about this city, and it's strong, and there's good reason.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm trying to show through Humans of St. Louis that there's so much humanity here, and we also need to focus on that stuff. So that was one person who was like, yeah, you can't share my photo. You can't share my story.
I'm going to get in trouble.
Yeah, and I get it.
Yeah.
Other folks are like, will you tell my updated story? Like, I'm fine if you put the story in there that you want, but like, I'm not on drugs anymore.
Like a then and now.
Oh, so they follow back up
Like a
and
then
say
and
like, hey, I would
now.
love to like, you know, do a follow-up.
Exactly.
And those are probably really, really fun. Not fun, but those are really, really, you know, rewarding for you as well. To
They
hear those.
really are to see that. We had someone that we focused on. She was in the book, and then we had a little behind the scenes moment where she had written us after we did her original story. So with her partner, they were on the side of the street in the West End. And I was out photographing with a friend that day who lived in the West End. And he's like, I want to photograph around my city, like in my neighborhood. I was like, let's get to know your neighborhood better. And he said to me, those two look suspect. Let's go over. I was like, well, that's not usually how I start, but
Hey,
you're with me today. So yeah.
I'm in your neighborhood. I'm your
Exactly.
guest. So,
So we approached this couple, and they had met in rehab, and they'd given the impression that they're not in rehab anymore. They were squatting. They were pregnant. It was her second baby. And they were just really open about their situation to the extent that they didn't have housing, and this baby's on the way. So with her permission, both of theirs, but really mom's, we shared it. And she had no way to see it because she didn't have a cell phone. She didn't have internet. Months later, she gave birth to the baby, and she wrote me in a behind the scenes like letter. She's like, I was beside myself to read what people wrote about me and what they thought would happen to this child who would be drugged and born on the street and all this stuff. She's like, I want you to know that I left the baby's dad, and I gave birth to my baby inside of a facility that, in a hospital, but like this facility had been helping me to get off drugs, and he's perfectly healthy, and I have him in my custody.
Wow.
And all of this. Reached out to ask to tell that story in the book, and she's like, Lindy, my story's so different.
How far after you had spoken with her did she deliver? Do you know? Like, or like how far along was she at the time?
I want to say like 4 months later.
Wow. I mean, that's a big
Yeah.
change in that short amount of time.
That's a really good point. So we got together to
amazing.
Starbucks, and she told me her follow-up story about how she went through the 12-step program, and this was the hardest part, and she asked for forgiveness, and she's so excited to like be clean and functioning. We became friends on Facebook, which I do a lot of the times with people who I end up meeting on the street, and they're now friends.
Aw.
And watching her every year since then, like stick to her story and stay like, I'm raising my child, I'm seeing my other child, I just got remarried. Like, it's really neat. So recently we told the whole follow-up story, And it was special. People were commenting, I remember her, you know, like that was years ago and they're following the
Yeah.
feed. Or how great to hear this story that you've made it out of that tough time because now you can be an example for other people. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes when I hear folks say, don't go to this side of town, don't go to the east side, don't go talk to these people, like that's the first thing I want to do because people are
you
just
can't
people.
wait to see the follow-up story for them. Like you never know what.
You know what it is, Marissa? It's like we hear about people who own guns and shoot guns and do drugs and steal. But most of the time when I'm meeting folks, they're not doing those things, even if they have or they might. So I'm able to talk to them and say, why did you do it? Or why would you? Why are you thinking about that? And the psychology of like then sharing that with someone so they're not like given this scarlet letter off the bat, you know? If somebody was to ask me, what's the worst thing you've done? And like, I'd have to answer. It's like, okay, now am I going to put that out there in public? But in the moment, I'm not doing the worst thing I've done. Like we're here talking right now and you're like, look at you with all of your accolades. We're all human, right?
And this could have been years ago when they were talking and they're like, just share it. And like that could be vulnerable for somebody to share that. And wow, this is just such a great episode. I've just love it.
What's down the road for you?
Fun.
What do you see down the road?
I always thought that like when the book was out, it would lead to other things and people would get their hands on it and then reach out to say, I'm interested in this or I'm interested in that. So as a storyteller, I can keep telling stories in St. Louis, but I'm interested in telling stories in other places too.
Awesome.
Yeah. And if someone reaches out and says, hey, can you do storytelling about this topic or for this group? I would love that.
Yeah.
If folks are like, we're looking to do our own book and we need help, I want to be able to share what process we went through just to self-publish this. Because even though we talk to other people who published and self-published and designed and edited, you don't really know until you've been through it. So now we can say like, if you need some assistance, think about this in the beginning, about who you're bringing on board, about your timeline, about your budget, about Mother Nature's pandemics that they're going to throw at you.
I know what will happen.
Yeah, whatever it is. But I'd like to do something in the realm of social work and public health. And if that involves storytelling, all the better.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, it is the STL Bucket List show. My favorite part about the show is obviously getting to know the guest, but my second favorite part of the show is learning what your idea of an STL bucket list is. Now, this is very broad. It could be your favorite places to eat, your favorite places to dance.
Where are you going to celebrate after you publish a book?
Yeah.
Like, where are these hot spots that, like, okay, let's say a friend comes in town, or let's say your partner from Australia comes in town. We didn't even get to talk about him. We'll have to do another episode. Shout out, if he's still listening right now, he will be like, thank God she finally spoke about me in this episode. But if he comes in town, we did talk before off the air, but when he comes in town, like, what are a date night spot? What are like some parks? Like, just give us an idea of like some bucket list spots for St. Louis.
Okay, well, if my partner comes into town from Australia, he loves barbecue. So the first thing he wants to do is hit up Sugar Fire.
Okay, Sugar Fire. Okay.
Or Hobart's.
Okay.
Nice.
Or Pappy's. Like, we are going to get
One of the three.
barbecue.
Yeah.
Anything.
Probably multiple times over the whole.
Yeah. If we're dancing, usually it's with my friends because he only comes to town for like so often, but we're definitely hitting up Viva.
Yeah.
And we've been known to ride to Kansas City just for a night to dance
Shut up.
and then come back. Yeah.
Same night.
Same night. So we'll have a
my
couple
gosh.
girlfriends and we'll take off at like
Lindy,
4 in the
pick me up
afternoon.
next time. We're
You
going.
wanna go,
I want to
Marissa?
go. I do want to go.
That is
That'd be
crazy.
So
So
cool.
fun.
That's cool.
So we'll
I
take
love
off at
it.
4, go get dinner, get to the dance spot, drive home.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
Yeah.
Straight from there.
Straight from there.
That is epic.
Just to dance.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Other friends go to like Chicago salsa congresses or something.
Oh, so you're big
So
salsa.
cool.
I haven't done the congress yet, but
Wow.
it's so much fun.
You're
And
deep in the salsa
the
game.
community is just so nice and welcoming. It's
Yeah.
great.
Mike, I remember the guy's name at Viva. His name was Mike. That's who was dancing with. Do you know, is he still there? I don't know. That's who was
Oh yeah, you were
teaching
dancing
me.
with some
Yeah.
guy, and I
I
was
don't
just
think
like,
I know a Mike.
I was like,
But if
what?
you're out there.
And we went with Maggie and he was giving lessons at night.
Yeah,
It was fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it was funny.
I would say like some other places that I love are the parks because parks for me as a storyteller are like very neutral territory.
Yeah.
Sometimes folks are like, what are you doing in my neighborhood? They look me up and down and they're like, you don't belong here. You can't be from here, you know?
Right.
It's like, okay, well, now that we've got that established, can we talk?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But in a park, folks come from everywhere. So I love just long walks and figuring out new places about Tower Grove or Forest Park. That's like a big one. Yeah.
Sounds good places.
Barbecue in parks and dancing.
Barbecue in parks. Yeah. And any kind of Latino food. So
Okay.
up and down Cherokee Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
La Vallasana is delish.
Yep.
Big yellow
Just
restaurant on the corner right there.
I was at El Kira
Best.
Bronco right next door.
Really good.
Really good tacos. But Lava
We go to
I don't even know. how to say it.
Vallasana.
Vallasana.
But their tacos
That's
are
where we go with we
They
get
got
their
ice
queso.
cream.
Yeah, even El Torito, they have a little taco stand outside that's always fired up.
So
It
Cinco de
seems
Mayo
like
is special for you. We need to go. Are you going to go out with us Cinco de Mayo? Should we hit
could do
you up?
Cinco de Mayo.
We
Yeah.
love
Sounds
Cinco.
fun.
We
that
love
was
Cinco.
where we came down to watch his sister's dog 5 years ago, and
Yeah.
it was Cinco. It was that weekend, and we
stayed
went out,
downtown.
and we were like, we need to live here now.
So
And we did.
cool.
Yeah, so that was
Love
the
it.
story with that. But yeah, that's all I got. I needed to hear the STL bucket list. I was like, I just needed to hear it.
I
So
love hearing people's bucket lists. Love it.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Lindy. It was a pleasure
Yeah.
talking with you.
This was so much
was
fun. You guys
cool.
asked some great questions, and thanks for letting me share about
put us on the team. Put
this
us in.
baby that's like so close
Any
to my
way we
heart.
can help you and you guys and the whole team, let us know. We're down. We
Yeah.
love what you're doing.
Love
So
it.
yeah,
Oh, it's very sweet.
amazing.
And if you
Thanks, you
all are
two.
listening today, we are going to be holding a giveaway for one of these special,
up with your
special
muscles.
books.
Come
it's
on.
very heavy. We're
a
going to be
heavy
putting this
one.
on Instagram and Facebook, and you guys can just tag and follow, and we're going to pick a special winner to give
Take
away.
home a copy.
Yeah, take away one of the
Yeah.
copies of this book. So thank you again for tuning in, Lindy. Thank you for coming in to the episode today. Really just had a good time learning more about your story. And it's nice to see the human behind the humans of STL and the other
Mhm.
humans that work on this project as well. But I feel the same way about us. Like when people meet us, they're like, oh, I didn't know that was you guys. Or like, I didn't know that you don't even know who we look like. Luckily we pinned a post at the top so that we can let people know what we
See
look
the
like
face.
sometimes. But like before that, it was like you just showed up and they're like, hi, I'm here. You were in the hallway today. So, Matt with Half Coast, thank you for producing another great episode. Regional Arts Commission. We will see you guys
Next week.
Wednesday.
Thanks,
So,
everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Today they rep St. Louis, yeah. They rep St. Louis. They rep St. Louis.